Now there are a handful of crops that can handle a readily amount of salt. They grow cotton, and that's why they grow a lot of cotton in the middle California and down in Arizona, because they have lots of that ground is high salt content, but cotton does fine. And barley's a rotation they use with it, because a lot of varieties of barley can handle a lot of salt. And there's a few other crops, but those are two pretty common crops that can be grown with areas pretty high salt content. You know, they've even done experiments growing tomatoes using seawater. And you can grow tomatoes irrigating them with seawater, certain varieties. As you keep enough leaching going through, it'll leach through the salts, and I've actually driven by the field of experimenting right on a beach down south of LA, between LA and San Diego, where they were doing a big test plot of that. It's pretty fascinating. They've done it in Japan also, where they've grown potted containers in seawater of tomatoes.
If you got a field that's got quite a bit of salt in it, and the following year you rotate it with barley or cotton, would the year after that, would the salt content be less?
The question is, if you grew cotton or barley, would the salt content decrease in a field? Those crops do not absorb salt. There are some grasses that they have developed that will actually take in salt and would actually come into the plant. There are certain salt grasses, not Sudan grass, special varieties that they are now using that they can actually plant in a field. And when they harvest it, they're actually taking some of the salt out with the plant. Now, whether or not that's consumable by cattle or whatever, I don't know. I've just been reading about it in the last couple of years. So what they do with that product, I'm not sure. But no, generally the problem is that when they're growing cotton and barley, the water they're putting back on the ground has salt in it, and so they're reloading salt back in the ground. It's actually gaining, and then they have to go in and leach to try to leach out some of that salt, and it just becomes a continuing problem. And then the water that they drain off of those fields, because they have to put so much leaching water in, it leaches down through, drains back into the river, and so the guy downstream, the river's that much more salted. And so when he draws his water out, his water's even worse than the guy upstream from him. And that Colorado River, they say it cycles 7 times by the time it hits the border, and boy, it's got a salt load in it by then, because all of those fields are adding salt to it all the way down the river. Thank goodness we don't have that problem in the Northwest. You know, it's something we don't have to really deal with, and it's very fortunate. Soil moisture monitoring. We'll finish soils today. You know, we can look at a year-long cycle and say, okay, we know how much we're going to need water-wise. A given crop needs so much water to grow. And we're going to get into the plant water needs next lecture, but a given crop like wheat needs about 25 inches of water a year to grow an optimum crop of wheat. And if we're in a rainfall area like out here at Touche only gets 10 inches of rainfall, effective rainfall, we need to add another 15 inches of rainfall, which will be artificially done by irrigation.